Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about one of the most common and, let's be honest, one of the most annoying errors in all of JavaScript. But more importantly, we're going to dive into the super clean, modern way to fix it for good. Sound familiar? You're in the zone, writing code, everything's going great, and then, bam, the whole thing just grinds to a halt. All because of this one little error that seems to pop up when you least expect it. And there it is, the infamous type error. You know the one. If you've ever written JavaScript, you've definitely run into this. It's what happens when you try to get a piece of data from an object, but somewhere along the way, one of the steps is just missing. All right, so let's really dig into this error and see exactly why it's such a common headache for developers. So check out this super simple scenario. We have a user object, right? But it's totally empty. When we try to get user.address.street, JavaScript first looks for user.address. It doesn't find it, so it gets back undefined. Then it tries to find the .street property on undefined. And, well, you just can't do that. So crash. And hey, this isn't just about objects you create yourself. This is a huge deal in everyday web development. You use query selector to grab an element from the page. But what happens if that element isn't there? The method returns null. And the second you try to get .inner HTML from that null value, you get the exact same crash. For years, developers had to jump through all sorts of hoops to stop these crashes. So let's take a little trip down memory lane and look at the old, kind of clumsy ways we used to handle this. The old ways. On the left, you've got the ternary operator. I mean, it works, but look, you have to type out user.address twice. It's just so repetitive. On the right, the logical AND operator. It's a little smarter, sure, because the whole thing stops if user.address is missing, but it's still not very readable, and you're still repeating that property name. And here's the real kicker. Once you have objects nested 3, 4, 5 levels deep, these old solutions just become a total nightmare to read. The source material we're looking at puts it perfectly. That's just awful. It really is hard to understand what's going on. But, good news, those days are pretty much over. Modern JavaScript has given us a much more elegant way to deal with this. I want you to meet optional chaining. It's just a simple little question mark syntax. And here's the magic. It's a totally safe way to dig into nested objects. If the thing before the question mark is null or undefined, the whole expression just stops right there and politely returns undefined. No error, no crash, nothing. And here it is. This is that aha moment. Just look at the difference. It's night and day, right? On the left, you have the clunky, repetitive old way. On the right, user.address.street. It's so clean. It perfectly says what you mean. Hey, try to get the street, but no big deal if the user or the address isn't there. So what you get is just undefined instead of a program stopping error. Your code is shorter, it's way easier to read, and you're not repeating yourself. This is just a massive win for writing clear and safe code. But wait, it actually gets even better, because optional chaining isn't just for getting properties, it's a surprisingly flexible little tool. There are basically 3 flavors of this that you're going to use all the time. You have the one we've already seen, object.prop, but you can also use it with square brackets, like object.prop, which is great for when your property name is in a variable. And this one's really powerful. You can use it to safely call a function that might not even exist, object.method. So picture this. Some of your users are admins, and they have a special admin method, but your guest users don't. Before, if you tried to call userguest.admin, your whole app would crash. But now, with userguest.admin.? JavaScript just checks first. Hey, does this admin method exist? No? Okay, cool. It just does nothing and moves right along. So simple, so safe. And it's the same deal with bracket notation. This is super useful when the property you're trying to access is dynamic. Here, even though user2 is totally null, the code doesn't explode. It just gives you back undefined. You can even use it with the delete operator. This line will only even try to delete the name property if the user object actually exists in the first place. It's just another way to write safer code without a lot of extra work. Okay, this next part is super important to understanding how this all works. It's a concept called short-circuiting. All it means is that the endian immediately stops everything if the value on its left doesn't exist. Anything to the right of it just never even runs. This example makes it crystal clear. We start a counter x at 0, Then we try to call a sayHi method on our user object, which we know is null. Because user is null, the dot question short circuits immediately. The sayHi function is never called, and, this is the key, the x++ part is never executed. And that's why at the end, x is still 0. Okay, so obviously this is an amazing feature, but like any powerful tool, you gotta know when not to use it. So let's wrap up with a really important word of caution. And this is the number one rule you have to remember. You should only use optional chaining where it's genuinely okay for something to be missing. It's meant to handle predictable optional data, not to cover up actual bugs in your code. Let's break this down. On the left, we have a perfect use case. Our application logic says that a user object has to be there, but maybe their address is optional. So we only put the dot question mark on the address. But look at the bad example on the right. If your application absolutely requires a user to function, but it's missing for some reason, this code won't throw an error. It'll just hide the problem by returning undefined, and that can lead to some really confusing bugs down the road. Alright, so let's quickly recap the key things to remember. Optional chaining saves you from crashes by returning undefined for null or undefined values. It short circuits, which means it stops any other code from running in that chain. There are three main forms for properties, brackets, and function calls. And most importantly, use it for things that are truly optional, not to paper over bugs. And that's optional chaining. It's such a simple, powerful tool that can make your code so much cleaner and more resilient. So the real question is, now that you know exactly how it works, what's the first place in your own code where you're going to go use it?